we're going to do a block and a block. Block. So this is a block, this is a block, and the whole thing is a quilt block. You are going to be able to do this without doing any cutting other than to square it up at the end. Stay tuned. Hi, it's Lynne with Soft Squares. Today I'm going to show you how to do a square in a square block. And to do that, you could use any fabric you want, any size, but today I'm going to use pre-cuts. I'm going to use a 10 by 10 layer cake and a 5 by 5 charm pack. And I want them to be of the same line or at least coordinate with each other. This particular quilt, that's exactly what I did. I had one of each of a charm pack and a layer cake of the full line. You could even choose to work with just one pack and cut it down, but the point is you're going to get a lot of squares out of one pack or two packs. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to make this. First thing we're going to do is take our blocks. Okay, so we have, let's see here. Let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. So we have, I'm really struggling with my direction. Ah! That's funny. Alright, so we are going to measure this block. Now we know it's 10 by 10 because it came out of a layer cake. And by the way, the line that I'm using, the fabric I'm using, is a really old line, but it is called New Wave by Benetrex. I don't think you're going to be able to find it. It's quite old, at least a couple years, but that's what I am working with today. So anyway, you're going to take this, because of these are the solid lines on my mat are at the 5-inch mark. Works great for centering a 10 by 10 square. Then you're going to take your 5 by 5 and you're going to put it in the center, but you want to make sure it really is centered. So this is where these dark lines are handy. So we're going to make sure that point and that point, as well as these. And I can tell I'm a little bit high. And that's where we're at. So I'm going to pin it. Next thing we're going to do is fold this over right where the edge of the charm pack is, or the smaller block. Fold it over, and then we're going to press it. Do the same with this side, and I find it easier to press the block all at once. So you do it that way, and now I'm going to press it. Now I've already pressed this one. Your next step after this is to sew a 1/4 inch down each side with a 1/4 inch foot. And then when you're done with that, open it up and press it open. So let me do that real fast. You're going to find it makes a big difference having it pressed. Don't skip this step. But you don't need the pin in here anymore because now that block is in there pretty good. So the really cool thing about this block, or this method, is that you can use a pattern or directional print, and you're going to be able to keep it pretty consistent with the block. You don't have to worry about the direction of turning your blocks to make it, because it's a no-cut method. We are not going to have any cutting other than to square this block down. Super easy, super simple, and it looks like you spent a lot of work on it. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is fold on this other corner, or yeah, it's a corner. Fold it down. Do the same over here. Now I'm going to take it to the iron. I'm going to press it, and then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch down each side, and then come back. One thing I want to show before I go any further is you want to make sure things are straight. And so you see how you have this seam right here and the seam right here. You want to keep it going straight with here. If it's slightly off, you're not going to have a square block. And there is a little bit of room if it doesn't line up exact up here, because you're using a 1/4 inch foot. So if you need to, you can make up for it in the seam allowance over there, but I would highly recommend keeping this as square as possible. Okay. Okay, so here's our block. It has been sewn down this side. Now next step is to press it open. So this one has already been done like that. So here's our almost finished block. I want to show you on the back what it looks like. we haven't done any cutting yet. Yet we've got a block that's finished. So the thing you can do at any point after this is cut the middle of that out. It does give you some extra fabric to work with. You don't have to. You can leave it in there. It's not a lot of extra bulk. But here's our block. So it started out as a 10 by 10 block, and now the most narrow part is from here to here due to the seam allowances. I find that it tends to be about 8 or 8 1/4 when I'm done with the sewing, and I go to square them up. Now you want to square up all the blocks to be exactly the same, and you want to keep your points consistent. And so we're going to put those on crosshairs again. This is my 4 mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, so that's center. And I know, because with the other blocks in this quilt, that I can get this to be 8 1/2, which means 4 1/4 for each side. So there's that. Rotating mat's probably helpful. Eight 1/4. Now you can see that's all that's left. I mean, I'm really not taking a whole lot out of here, because I want my blocks as big as I can be. You could choose to make them smaller. If you don't want to have this little piece here, you can definitely go in smaller with a narrower seam. Let's see here. Make sure you're squared. You're on the line. This is squared up. Go over 4 1/4. Trim it down. The only thing that's really time consuming on this is the being exact on your placement or centering, because it can make a big difference on your quilt if you have not bothered to do that. And actually this is 1/4, so I'm going to out just a little bit. Let's see here. There we go. And that's it. So we have got a full block, a good finished block. Excuse me. So now the next thing you could do is just join your blocks together. You can add sashing between them. The nice thing is, if you are paying attention to how centered these are, the points should line up really well. But my favorite part about this block is that there's a print in here, and it just continues. It doesn't interrupt the flow of the background fabric, and you didn't have to spend any time trying to figure out where things go. So I'm going to show you how to cut out the back of here if you do want that extra little piece. You can incorporate it in a quilt, and I've got several quilts that I have done that with. I'm going to put links to finished quilts that I've done using this block and block method, so you can see how I finished them. And this quilt, when it is done, I will go back in and edit the video, not the video but the description, so you will be able to see what this looks like when it's done. I would recommend scissors like this with a really sharp point, because you want to make sure you're only getting the purple side or the outside of the block, and that you're not cutting all the way through. And you can pinch and pull it like this. Excuse me. And honestly, that's probably the easiest right now. Just do a little cut. There we go. And now we want to be really careful and make sure we leave a seam allowance. Don't go too close. But this is when you're all done, this is like a 4 by 4 square. That's a big piece of fabric that you can still incorporate into the quilt or make a smaller project, or just put your stash, but it doesn't have to come out. But to me, this is usable. And you're going to see, like I said, in the quilts that I finished, how I've utilized this small piece. So this is the back when that comes out, should you choose to do that. This is the front. I'm going to show you another block that I have done with the same fabric. It is this one. So the goal is to get enough contrast between the center block and the outer block that you can see it. Sometimes even if they match, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy to see from a distance. These are going to stand out. I have in the past made red blocks with, you know, different coordinating reds, but from a distance it still looks all red. I don't really notice the difference of the second square. And the quilt is really pretty, but it's not what I want for this one. I want there to be more contrast. But this is just going to be laid out randomly, and we're going to have a fun quilt. I'm not sure what it's going to look like when I'm done. I'm probably going to add like a black sashing between those. I think that would be really cute. So check out my links. Look at the other videos that I have done, or not videos, but other quilts. But I do want to show you, this is that centerpiece. Look, it's about 4 inches, 4 by 4. You can do a lot with that, a lot, whether you do it in this project or not. Okay, so I hope that is helpful. Let me know if you enjoy this method. Post your pictures. I'd love to see what they look like. Talk to you soon. Bye. There's the back side with it cut out. And here's our blocks.